Well, good morning again to everyone. I hope that everyone had a fine Thanksgiving with their family and loved ones. And I hope that you continue to practice safe hygiene during the holiday season, which is upon us now. Let me thank my colleagues, the Reverends Angela Herrera, Bob LaValle out of Albuquerque UU Church, and the Reverend Jeremy Nickel from Boulder for leading us in worship over the last 2 weeks. I am deeply grateful for their collaboration and their collegiality. My colleague, the Reverend Gordon Bailey of the UU Church in Las Vegas, Nevada, will be joining us or be joining me for the service on December 27th. Reverend Bailey and I are close friends, and it won't be a service like the last two with their congregation joining us. It'll just be Gordon and I leading the service. We're going to do a joint Kwanzaa service on December 27th. Well, today I want to visit with you for a few minutes on the topic of healthy, wealthy, and wise. Healthy, wealthy, and wise. I thoroughly enjoy watching The Crown on Netflix. The series depicts Queen Elizabeth and her woes as monarch. And the show depicts history with fascinating characters. It frequently exceeds all of my expectations. Watching Queen Elizabeth, portrayed by Olivia Colman, highlights moral wisdom, which can inspire us to act differently and to reflect on how we live our lives. It's fascinating watching the royal family's enormous luck and good fortune. They get catered to in every way and have enormous trappings: food, drink, clothing, cars, you name it, they have it. And we dream of living with such wealth at our fingertips. But slowly, the story reveals that all the Queen's children and Diana live in a state of constant misery. The billionaire Warren Buffett said this: if you were a jerk before, you'll be a bigger jerk with $1 billion. Our fascination with royalty is tied to our dream of amassing wealth. We used to have a thing called the American dream. The dream, not to be confused with Dr. King's dream, contained a certain set of certainties: well-paying jobs, class mobility, and the ability to take care of one's family. Blue-collar workers had an enormous investment in that dream. When that set of certainties went away, the dream died. The resulting grief, unconscious and unspoken, has caused widespread misery and distress, not only here in America, but around the globe. Judy Garland said, "How strange when an illusion dies, it's as though you've lost a child." Well, the loss of certainty has revealed a deep fear among the 70 million. Losing everything to immigrants, socialism, and undeserving liberals. President Trump's skillful rhetoric taps into this fear and makes his supporters extremely loyal to him. One illusion related to attaining wealth is that it protects us from the uncertainties of life. The mystic Howard Thurman taught us that life's vicissitudes make us human and inspire us to draw closer to God. We UUs have a fraught relationship with God. Many UUs get anxious when they hear the word. In his book, Lifelines, the renowned UU minister, Forrest Church, reflects on atheist claim of God's non-existence. He contrasts that with the unknowability of God and how not knowing affects our lives. Church makes one thing clear: certainty is not the basis of UU faith. Rather, it is an uncertainty that grounds us. I profess to leaning heavily on certainty. Betting on certainty, I have learned and know, is idolatrous. By insisting that we know certain things to be true, which are beyond evidence, we assume a burden of proof we cannot fulfill. I work hard not to project any form of certainty on other people's motivations. I rely on what I see, what I hear, and what others do. Being a Unitarian Universalist, I trust the promises or the covenants that I make with others. And when relationships break down, I return to the covenant and ask the other person how they wish to proceed. We've seen the covenant break down between the chief executive and the Constitution. It turns out many certainties can be broken. Just preference, personal ambition over duty, and many elected officials will stand by. This posture enabled the coronavirus to spread disproportionately here as Americans unwisely shun masks and social distancing. This is an era that demands wisdom. The nation can't afford for us to stand by watching behaviors and events that, if not taken seriously and ended, will lead to thousands and thousands of more deaths. I think about World War II and how people stood by during the Holocaust. We should remember the genocide, such as in Rwanda, when the Hutus slaughtered the Tutsis. What began as a whisper campaign turned into an all-out massacre of hundreds of thousands of Rwandans by their own neighbors who fell prey to hateful and filthy propaganda. It was a time when our US government unwisely stood by and watched. It's easy to be bystanders and to watch norms break down as if it's normal and as if there's nothing we can do but watch. This is how democracies crumble, fail the most vulnerable, and create their own vicissitudes. Now, the election is over, and Joe Biden is preparing to take charge. We still must continue exercising wisdom and speaking out against the wrongdoing we see today. Speaking up will earn you some enemies, and that is fine by me. Now, I know wise ministers don't intentionally create enemies, but adhering to our call and covenant sometimes prompts people to push back on the minister's decisions and turn away. In one inspiring scene in The Crown, Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, played by Gillian Anderson, names this when discussing needed changes in her cabinet and British society. She quotes a poem to the Queen by Charles Mackay. It reads, "You have no enemies, you say. Alas, my friend, your boast is poor. He who has mingled in the fray of duty, that the brave endure, must have made foes. If you have none, small is the work that you have done. You've hit no traitor on the hip. You've dashed no cup from perjured lip. You've never turned the wrong to right. You've been a coward in the fight." Mackay's poem provides a remedy for standing by. It urges us to take courage and deploy wisdom. The holiday season is when we look forward to letting our guard down and relaxing from the year's vigilance. It is the season we wish for a relaxing time with our families and friends. But this year is going to be different. Can this be a season of caring for ourselves and promoting individual and family well-being? I was listening to the People's Pharmacy, one of my favorite radio programs recently, and their guest was Dr. Crystal Agu, a professor of dermatology at Johns Hopkins and the director of ethnic skin program there. I asked myself, when did ethnic skin become a thing? Well, she's an expert, and she stated that healthcare experts expect a surge in medical problems because people are not seeing their physicians and monitoring their health as they normally would because of the pandemic. Many people commonly ignore certain aspects of their physical, mental, and emotional well being. And regarding their physical well being, they will ignore such things as skin growths or certain aches and pains. They tell themselves it can wait. Those small things can become immense problems down the road. Dr. Agu encouraged listeners to take care of themselves during the pandemic. Well, taking her advice, I had my annual labs run. And before that, I had a cardiologist workup. I got my eyes examined and have been getting at least 7 hours of sleep per night. Tamara and I have maintained a healthy diet during the pandemic, and I've lost 7 pounds since it began. To her great credit, Tamara has lost around 20, 25 pounds. Well, these efforts give me a sense that I'm taking care of myself, but on some level, I realize that it's still an illusion. None guarantee any longevity for me, but I am doing things within my control to live as best I can and according to my values. We are all limited by our capacity to imagine, to use judgment, and we need a little good luck. Most people in the Queen circle are merely lucky. Few of them did anything to deserve their good fortune. They were born into extremely high privilege. But we are like rubberneckers to royal behavior. It's hard not to look. Well, here's a story about wealth and wisdom I think that you're going to appreciate. Before going to Europe on business, a man drove his Rolls Royce to a downtown New York City bank, then went in to ask for a $5,000 loan. The loan officer requested collateral. The man said, "Here are the keys to my Rolls Royce." The loan officer had the car driven into the bank's underground parking for safekeeping and gave the owner $5,000. 2 weeks later, the man walked into the bank and asked to settle up his loan and to get his car back. That'll be $5,000 in principal and $15.40 in interest, the loan officer said. The man wrote a check, got up, and started to walk away. "Wait, sir," the loan officer said. "While you were gone, I discovered that you're a millionaire. Why in the world would you need to borrow $5,000? The man smiled. "Where else could I safely park my Rolls Royce in Manhattan for 2 weeks and only pay $15.40? Well, many rich and famous earn their way using skill, perseverance, and years of hard work. Elite athletes and film stars come to mind. The talented and gifted dancer and choreographer Marge Champion, who recently died at age 101, told how she practiced her dance routine with her husband, Gar Champion, for 9 hours a day, 6 days a week. They worked so hard, she fractured both big toes twice. When we see stars on film, on stage, or athletes competing, or wherever highly skilled people perform their craft, we think they were naturally born that way. In reality, they put in the work, endured the boredom of repetition, and perfected their craft beyond the pale. They had the wisdom that says failure is not the end. So they picked themselves up, brushed themselves off, and started all over again. This is how we create certainty. By doing things over and over, we create mental shortcuts and outcomes, enabling us to live successfully, almost on automatic pilot. Even that becomes boring. To reach our full capacity, we must discover more uncertainty. We must push the boundaries of our imaginations into unknown territory. The healthy, wealthy, and wise make this their habit. Likewise, the holiday spirit calls us to do the same. Both encourage openness to the unknown and creating possibilities that we couldn't conceive before, expanding our imagination. You can claim your spiritual direction or life philosophy. Just say you're atheist, agnostic, Buddhist, or form of this or that, then act accordingly. Forrest Church describes that as, quote, showing your pride by vesting your rationality with sovereign authority. That's kind of a mouthful. But he goes on saying, and I quote, I am really not an atheist as they claim to be. Unlike them, I believe in what I cannot know, the God beyond God, not omnipotent and omniscient. These are human constructs, but ineffable and inscrutable, subject neither to human description nor human understanding. Church reminds us that there is wisdom in accepting things we cannot know or which make little sense to us. As he writes, we get in trouble when we cannot accept this or when we try to explain for ourselves or to others what cannot be understood. We also get in trouble when we imagine that nothing exists beyond that which we can, in fact, understand and explain. Finally, he says, we get in trouble when we allow what little we know to get in the way of our relationships with our neighbors, given that our knowledge of the ineffable and inscrutable cannot be that much greater than theirs. This, my friends, has been a year beyond belief, and it is still going on. None of us know what tomorrow will bring. We must strive to live as healthy, wealthy, and wise as we can, given our limits as human beings. So, this holiday season, I encourage you to stretch your imagination beyond your belief. You can do what you think you cannot do. By the same token, you won't know your capabilities until they are forced to reveal themselves. So I say, be open to not knowing, trust in the ineffable, and believe in the inscrutable as you anticipate the holiday season and the year ahead. Ashe, may it be so, y como ellos dicen en español, amén.